Now on 4, boats and harbours are the inspiration for painting on holiday.
Isn't that sea a fabulous colour? I know now what they mean by Mediterranean blue. It really is blue. Anyway, I love painting the sea, but I don't want to paint it just by itself today. What I do like, I like boats. I love painting boats. And we're going to a small harbour just over there, a little harbour, and then later on we're going to a bigger bustling port. And in fact, that's over that direction. Tell you what, looking over there, that looks nice, doesn't it? I like that. I think I'll have to come back later and paint that. Found some boats. They're different to normal. I've never seen boats halfway up a cliff before. But they've got like little sheds, and it's quite incredible to see them up there. Still, I'm drawing them, and I'm going to draw them on cartridge paper, or sketch them, shall I say, and then I'll put some colour on as usual. So here we go with what I'm told is very typical of the Mediterranean, these, or certainly of the islands, these boats in a cliff. It's almost like a cliff garage. Anyway, I've drawn the boats in there. Notice I'm doing some shading. And in fact, I want some more up here. I want to get the darks in as usual. Remember, I'll be painting over this when it... oh, I've got a white line there. When I've done the drawing. Actually, that's looks like corrugated. I don't think it is, because it's white. It would have rusted by now, but it's some form of corrugated plastic. Very dark under there, which is rather nice because it shows that up. And there's a shadow cast over a rock and down there. That shadow's going to move, of course, but it goes all dark up into there. It goes right, in fact, it's like a tunnel. And the tunnel has been sort of made, literally, into the cliff. These sort of runners that the boats are pulled up on or taken down on, they're the shadows I'm doing in now from these. They're made of, or they're not made of, they're actual branches from trees that they use. So it's all very natural. You've got rock, and then you've got wood from the local surroundings. Everything is natural and from its own environment, which is rather nice. There's some shadow on this boat coming down through there, so let's put that in. And it goes underneath. And there's some lovely dark underneath there and there. That's it. Actually, there's this also, this is the shadow side of the boat in here. I don't need too dark, because that's got to be dark enough there to be able to show that is still light and show the form of it. There's some lovely colour in these rocks. They're a sort of pinky colour. In fact, it's almost whitey pink at times, and then it goes into this lovely orange, pale orange. In fact, this that I'm painting now they're tiles, so they've even put tiles up there as well. Again, tiles are made from the earth. Everything seems to be made from the earth around here. It could even be a bit yellower, that tile. But it really is, all the colours, they all sort of blend together. Just put a bit more in there. And in fact, there's a lot of that yellow in this rock above here. When I say yellow, it's, as I say, it's a sort of pinky yellow. I'll go with that dark, but I shall more than likely do that again. Then there's a little bit of blue. I've got 2 or 3 colours that I've just mixed in the palette here, and I'm sort of dipping into them and adding to them. In fact, there's a lovely bit of blue colour on the rock down here, which is rather nice. Notice I'm not painting all of it. I'm not, oh, this is all blue. I'm not doing sort of right to the edges of the paper. It doesn't need it. It's rather nice when you leave edges around a sketch and never worry about it. It's what you like, what you want. And if you like to leave a nice edges or no paint around the edge, you do it. Now we've got this dark in here. It's a sort of, it's a greeny dark. I'll add a bit of green, I think, over that in a little while, but I'll leave that where it is. Then this side is a sort of, well, it's almost the same rock colour, really. There are so many colours that are merging together over there, and this is a bit white, but I'm warming it up a bit, and it will just look a bit dead. So I've warmed that a little bit to what it really is. The inside of that, we've got a little bit of warmth in there, but I don't know what it is. It almost looks like a sail that's packed away in there. But I shall come over that again to paint it all dark. But we will have that light colour left. Now let's put the colour of the boat. We want a cerulean blue for this, which I carry around. I don't use cerulean blue very much at all, but you find it can be very helpful when you are painting what we call local colours. Local colours are the colours of things, of objects. And I'll put my finger on that. There we are. Doesn't matter, never worry. But it does, it's always there for any colour where the blue that you usually use, and I use ultramarine, when you need that colour. But of course, ultramarine won't make cerulean because it's a primary colour and we can't mix it. So that's put the boat in. It's funny actually, it's all blue on top and white outside. It almost looks wrong, but obviously it isn't, because it's there in front of us. And this boat has got blue. Now from where I'm standing, or sitting, I can't see whether that blue of the boat is going in or sitting on top. I'm guessing and thinking that it goes inside, but I can't tell. But we need some shadow on the boats. So I'll put a bit of shadow on, and I haven't got to put too much because we've got to make that dark inside. Just put a bit round there. That's in the sunlight. We've quite dark in there, and it comes out almost up to the stern. There's a shadow in there, and there's a shadow under there. Now, let's put the water in, which is really the sort of, oh, it could be a bit greener than that, which is almost the last thing to do, really. Look, just let it leave bits and pieces of the white paper, which shows the sort of just slight bit of foam that there is. There isn't much, there's just a little bit there. And then just let it finish off nice and sort of gentle like that, just so that, oh, I don't want that cockeyed, I want that was a bit not very straight. That's better like that. Now there's very little reflection in that, very little reflection. We could put a bit in if we like, but somehow, just perhaps a little bit, just a little bit. We'll just get a little bit of dark colour, that's the rock colour, and we'll put that in, and then we'll call it a day, I think. Let's get this, just a little bit of colour. It might run, so I've got to be careful. Yeah, just run in a little bit, but that's just enough to show that that is water rather than something odd and funny. Now I'm starting to fiddle. I'm adding a little bit here and a little bit there, and I mustn't fiddle. Right, that's it. Now, I must go and collect June now from the cafe, and we're going to another port. I'll see you there. Well, this is different to Dare. The port of Sawyer is just a mile or so up the coast, but it's got everything. A modern fishing fleet, a naval base, pleasure boats, private yachts, and of course those lovely white boats that are so typical of the Mediterranean. It's difficult to know what to paint in a situation like this, with so much to choose from and so much going on, but in the end I've decided to paint the traditional fishing boats. And June found a fisherman mending his nets.
Well, while Alwyn is doing the boats, I'm not terribly keen on boats, so I decided I'd look for something more interesting. And this fisherman is certainly that. But it's very difficult drawing something that keeps moving, and he keeps moving, I'm afraid. Put the chair in front, and let me think, the sweater with the arm is going round there. He's moved his arm again. Oh, that one's gone a bit squishy. He's busy mending the nets, but it's a job to see what he's doing all the time. That's the chair in front of him, which goes across there. Then there's a basket which is around that area with a bag on it, and his needles. I might put some colour on this later, and then it'll make it more sort of look more like it's meant to look, because the colours distinguish things. And this is the net that he's busy doing. Better do a few lines and creases on that. Or better do a foot coming down here, I think. That's some more net. I might, as I just said, I might put some colour on this, and then you can see what's happening better. That's, I don't know whether to put any with glasses. Yes, he's got a bare neck. So if the colour runs into there, that's quite... Oh, he's got a nose too, hasn't he? He's got a white shirt. Oh, and he's got a stripe. I think he's going to move before long. I'm supposed to be leaving white stripes in this sweater. But because I think he's moving, I've got a little bit... filled it in a bit too much. Never mind. I'd better leave a little of the net, I think. Otherwise I won't see it's there. So when I'm doing it down, I'll leave a few white lines to show that the net's there. Then I can put a little bit of the orange colour in over the top. That's better. Whoops. Actually, it's lucky it's quite, it's fairly dry. But on top where the light's caught it, it's very light. So I'll just put a little lighter colour. That's that. You've got a goldy colour basket, which obviously will have to have some shadow on later. That goes across there, and there's something round the back. I'll put the net in next because that's a sort of deep reddy colour. I think the paint's drying up pretty quickly at the moment because the sun has got very, very hot. Oh, I think I'll put a little bit more net down here, otherwise, where it's all closing up together. And I think I'll have to leave that to dry before I can put the glasses and the eyebrows, etc. in. So I'll leave that to dry now.
Well, while June puts the finishing touches to her picture, I've done a quick sketch of these two boats, which I particularly liked. There's something really lovely about their simple shape and wooden masts.
Now, all these boats are white, as we know, but I'm going to give them a tone at the moment of a grey colour. Well, grey, it's ultramarine and crimson, and just use a little bit of yellow ochre. The reason is that the white part of the boats, where the sun is catching them, is on the top. And if I left the boat white where it's in shadow, then of course it's going to look odd. I wouldn't get the light part for the lightest part that I need, which is where the sun's catching it, as I said, on top there. Now, the water that I'm putting in now is the light coloured water, not the reflected water. So I'm not going all the way back with this water, or otherwise I would be painting the whole of the harbour. But notice I'm just leaving one or two little bits of white, because they are little bits of light caught on the water, reflected light. This is dark with a lighter side on there. Then we've got this bit on here, which I said when I drew it was, I don't know what it was, but it was something to do with, naturally, with the boat. These darks. Then we've got the mast up here. Oh, I always forget what they call these. Fenders. That's fenders. Got that red there. There's one there, a dark one in there. And we haven't got any colour at all in the boats, so we'll leave them. We have got a line of blue here on this boat that goes round like that. Perhaps it's a bit too bright, that, but anyway, and it goes in there, comes down there. We've got bluey green on the bottom of that, which you can hardly see. I look around there, I can just see. In fact, I've got reflection that comes down there, that's coming from another boat, and it starts back there. So let's just put this in down here. All dark inside there. And I mustn't forget the mast when it starts to happen, which is roughly about there. Now, that rope that I'm just painting now is white, but it doesn't matter that I'm painting it dark. If I could have left it white all the time and painted it, that would have been different. I would have, or not painted it, I would have left it naturally. But I can't go over the top of that in white naturally, so I'm just painting it dark, and it doesn't matter. It still gives the impression of ropes. That one's a green one, and there's a green one round here as well that's hanging down there. Then there's another one over here. It's tied onto that one. Some little bits and pieces around here, ropes that go over onto the one over there. There isn't a lot of work in these boats as far as rigging is concerned, but I think that's enough. You see, what I wanted to do, there isn't a lot of time, especially when you're on holiday, but I just like the look of them. I want to capture them. I just want to be able to take it home with me. It's better than a photograph, isn't it? So, there we are. We'll leave that one, and I'll go look for something else.
Well, I've come back to the cliffs where I was this morning, and it looks gorgeous in the evening light. The only problem is the light is fading so fast that I've got to work very quickly.
Actually, the cliffs have got some lovely pinky colour. Let's have a look. some lovely pinky colour, yellow ochre and pink. They're lovely colours together, and they streak down these cliffs. There's a cave there. Funny, I noticed that when I was drawing it. I wouldn't have thought, it's so perfect, I wouldn't have thought it would have been there. I'm sure it's a cave. And so I've made a point of that on the painting, and I remember that. I think they're even redder still, even redder than I'm doing them. So let's get some more red in there and see whether I've... That's better. That... Oh, gosh, that was red. And then there's all sorts of bits of shadow all in the cliff, obviously, because the cliff is rugged. But we can't put too much of that in it. Let's not get detailed and fussy. Stop fiddling, Alwyn. Now, these are the trees that are just coming into the picture. One thing I am finding, and that is the difference between the colours where I normally paint at home to painting over here in the Mediterranean. They are different. They're much brighter, and I'm quite surprised actually when I paint some of these colours because they're not really my colours. I paint more subtly, but these colours are really bright colours. I like it. I don't dislike it at all. It's rather nice. Makes a change as well. That one is almost white on top of it, so I'm going to leave that area there and then just put these in. Now these, I'm not trying to paint individual rocks in detail, I'm just putting them in quite deliberately, but without trying to get all the detail. Now here we go. Oh, no, I don't know whether that's too blue. It could be a bit lighter than that. Perhaps just a little bit of crimson put in, but it is so blue. It really is amazing. Right, I'm going to start to make it darker as I come nearer. So let's now just take it round there. In fact, it does go a little duller there. I don't know why, just going round the corner. Now, it starts to get darker as we come nearer these rocks, and I'm going to change brushes now and go on to a smaller brush, or otherwise I wouldn't get round these rocks. And I want to also get a little bit of, just a little bit of movement into the sea. There, the water where it's breaking. I might have exaggerated the breaking water actually, but it does, there's a bit there, it does help to make it look sort of alive and something happening round the edge of the rocks. Now I'm just going to go a little lighter with these now. There's one that sort of sprays up there, another one sprayed up there. And we've been a bit extreme with the water, the colour of the water, so we've just got to get them a bit darker now to match up with it. We've got a rock there that's darker, one there that's a bit darker than it. Oh, and in fact, there's that one starts dark at the base down there. Just one or two bits in here. That's a dark one. I can put a dark one in there. That's it. Well, we've come to the end of our holiday and the end of the series. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as we have. Anyway, I've got one thing.